Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from this month's sponsor, Ethico.
If you're a compliance officer, middle managers are crucial in getting your programs from you to your frontline employees. But how do we activate those managers and get them on our side? Ethico's new Middle Manager Toolkit equips you with the skills needed to empower your managers, to promote a culture where ethical behavior thrives and employees feel empowered to speak up. Learn how to turn frontline managers into ethical leaders with our new white paper, Empowering Middle Managers as Ethics Champions. And did I mention you can get the whole toolkit for free? Head to ethico.com to download the full toolkit today.
Also, if you are looking for something new and different for the upcoming Compliance Week celebration in November, check out The Compliance Kids. It's my 3-book children's series on compliance and compliance professionals for children. But they make great gifts and great training tools for your employees. You can check it out on Amazon.com. We've linked to it in the show notes. The Daily Compliance News for October 24, 2024, the Quid Pro Quo edition. We begin with that story as Donald Trump has put Judge Aileen on a proposed list of candidates for Attorney General. What does that sound like? Well, you throw my case out, maybe I'll give you the AG seat. So, is it a quid pro quo or is it something else? I'll leave that one to you. Next up, from NPR, Peru's ex-president Alejandro Toledo was sentenced to 20 years and 6 months in prison in a case involving the corruption from the Brazilian construction giant Odebrecht, which has become synonymous with corruption across Latin America, where it paid millions of dollars in bribes to government officials. Toledo himself is accused of accepting $35 million in bribes from Odebrecht in exchange for allowing the construction of a highway in the country. The court imposed the sentence after years of legal wrangling over whether Toledo could be extradited from the United States. In a major hire, Bloomberg reports that OpenAI has hired a former Uber executive, Scott Schools, to serve as its first chief compliance officer, bolstering the company's efforts to emerge from the emerging global regulations around artificial intelligence. Schools was most recently the chief ethics and compliance officer at Uber, another tech company that has certainly dealt with its own series of ethics challenges over the years. So we can only say good luck, Scott, and it's going to be a bumpy ride. I hope you can fasten your seatbelt. And finally, from Wired, we finally get some good news out of Nigeria as Nigeria has dropped its charges against Tigran Gambaryan, the jailed Binance executive who's thrown in jail unceremoniously in Nigeria on completely trumped up charges. The United States has finally secured his release, so he will be coming back to the United States. His medical condition apparently is quite poor, so whether this was a humanitarian release, whether this was a payment release, whether this was the U.S. government saying knock it off release, it really doesn't matter. He's coming home, and I wish him certainly the best. Whatever happened to him, whatever Binance did, he did not deserve what Nigeria did to him. So he's coming home. As I mentioned at the start of this podcast, the sponsor for the entire Compliance Podcast Network is Ethico. Well, Ethico has a great new offering this month for you, a toolkit for middle managers. This is something that you, as the compliance professional, can use to move your compliance program forward by giving middle managers the skills necessary to answer a call for speak up or when someone comes in their office and raises a concern. I can't think of a tool that will be more valuable for you in the current era of enforcement. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.